On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, they improved to 4-4 and have won 3 games in a row, but they did so for the second time in 3 games without Joel Embiid. They look pretty good doing so. How do they figure this out? Looking much better when the big fella's back on the floor. We discuss it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. What's going on, Keith Pompey?
What's up, bro? How you doing?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Sixers pick up the W. So we have a lot to talk about, of course, as they improve to 4-4 on the season. But before we get started, again, welcome. You are all locked on Locked On 76ers here. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host, Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer for the Inquirer.com here. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On 76ers. Well, Keith, as we thought, they should go into Washington and take care of business. They did so with the final score 118-111. No Joel Embiid for the second time in 3 games. He did not play on Friday, the final game against the Toronto Raptors. He played in Chicago, hit the game winner, essentially, with that three-pointer to give them a 3-point advantage. They won by 5 points. Took the night off tonight. He was ill, non-COVID illness, out last night against the Washinton Wizards. But one thing that we have noticed is they play at a different style. PJ Tucker got started at the 5. He just slid over to a new spot, DeAnthony Melton, into the starting lineup with no Joel Embiid. And Keith, again, they scored 6 players scored in double figures. They play with a different type of pace, of course, when you don't have the big fella on the floor. And as you said, I'll give you the credit on this one, they need to figure out how to play and mix both styles of basketball when both Embiid is on the floor and when he's not on the floor, but do it when he is on the floor and they're all together to play in a similar way. They're 48 minutes. You can mix it all in.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because when you look at Joel Embiid, I mean, not only is he the best player on the team, he's a guy that they're not going to go far in the playoffs without him. And they need to incorporate it. And that was something that James Harden talked about after the game, that they need to figure it out. Because, when you look at it, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where the ball handlers, Harden and Maxey, when Embiid's not in there, they can drive the lane, draw a guy, and kick it out. And that's how guys are getting open shots. But when he's in there, it's kind of like it's clogging the middle up or whatever it is. The spacing just isn't as free as it is without him. So that's something that they really have to figure out, because again, it's great that they got this win, but 2 of their wins basically came without him. And to me, that's good, but it's not really helping the Sixers. Long big picture. It's good to get a win, but it's not helping them out big picture. I feel like they need to do that when he is on the floor with them.
Well, to me, there's a lot that goes into it because he likes his touches. They like to run the offense through them as through him as they should. And that's the catch-22. You have to find a good balance of it. And then there's also the conversation of when he is out there and he is on the perimeter. We often hear, why is he floating around the perimeter so much? Well, he's doing that too because he wants to give. They're putting this together that way to give them the space to do exactly what you're talking about. So it's the inside out of it, a part of it. But when he is out on the perimeter, there's a lot of pushback of him not being on the low block because he's so dominant. But when he is on the perimeter, and yes, he does take shots, but it is more to allow that free space for those players to operate, to your point, to do just as you're talking about, which is to go up there and perform the way that we have seen in these two games that he has not. So how do you figure it out? How do you do it? I really don't know the answer except for the sacrifice that we talk about early on in the season, Keith, before we got into the guts of the year, starting from the offseason to training camp and preseason. I remember us doing one of the conversations that we had was about sacrifice. And there's only so much that he can sacrifice because he is the head of the snake here with this offense, and the ball does have to go to him. He does play in the mid post. He does play with his back to the basket, but he also goes to the perimeter and screens and gets out of the way for them to do their work. Is he unselfish enough to let them get off where he is still going to score his 27 a night because he's going to get his work, but they're also going to give him the basketball without him having to do much work because of their penetration and their committing to looking for him when they get to that lower block area, allowing for him to get the bucket. So, what do you think? How do you? I mean, they said James Harden said to you that he has to figure it out, but what is it? How is it when he is such a dominant player, such a dominant force, and draws so much attention?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things where I mean, like you said, they get the spacing, but I just think that they got to. He just well, one thing that will help is with the spacing. I think he might need to get a little bit more in better shape. You know what I mean? I mean the pace to get up there, and also I think that they may just have to tweak things a little bit. Like you might not be able to run stuff through them like you used to all the time. It's kind of like now you have two explosive guards who needs the ball in their hands and create, and then they can kick it to them, dump down with them. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like when you running the thing through him, and don't get me wrong, it's not a knock against him, but when you got Harden and Maxi, it's kind of like you want those guys going 100 miles per hour, and then you can dish the ball to him, as opposed to going to him and you got a bunch of bodies, people like turning them over, and then he's trying to get the ball out. You understand what I'm saying? So I just think that they just need to change up their style of play a little bit.
I just want them to work smarter, not harder, where you don't have to work so hard to get the baskets that he does. Sometimes going through the double teams, he comes down, he feels like he's not getting enough touches, and just making sure that it's a little bit easier, and they're not worried too much about that type of stuff. I know it's the NBA, and we all look at that and we say everybody has to get their touches, the egos are involved. Well, they preach all these different things, and when it comes down to it and the opportunity is there, then yeah, the adjustments needs to be made and the egos need to be put aside for this to happen. And that goes for the guards too. Mainly James Harden, I'm talking about. Tyrese Maxey just goes out there and just plays basketball. So I'm not really worried about him. It's really about Harden and Embiid and Doc Rivers figuring out the best way for them to play together to keep this type of success going. I mean, they win games the way that he plays also. When we look at 50 plus wins on a regular now, and that's nothing for us anymore. They have to figure out how to do both when he is out on the floor, and of course when he's not out there on the floor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Well, listen, man. If they need help trying to figure all that out, I have the place for them to go, Keith. And that's the coaching staff, the players, LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. Now, that's a big business. And it's a big deal, but you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And I think this basketball team does have that. But they felt like they need some more answers to help out in that way. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. So if you're a small business and you have, free posts, free job posts on LinkedIn Jobs, it's very easy to create that and add your job by posting the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word once again that you're hired. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy for you to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and higher. Need to finish the year strong. We're already in the month of November, so you have about a good 8 weeks to get this going, finding the right team member to help you do just that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out the Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. That's Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Keith. The team, though, they have won 3 games in a row, man. They're starting to get it together. They're hitting their stride at the right time, ending a 4-game road trip, winning the last 3, Toronto, Chicago, and Washington. And now they have 3 games at home, with Washington on Wednesday, New York on Friday, and Phoenix next Monday. They're starting to get back into it. Looking at the standings after last night's game, they are in 6th place at 4-4. They're not too far behind, being back in that mix that we've been talking about them with all season. So, what has impressed you the most about this 3-game winning streak that they've been on?
You know what? I would have to say Tyrese Maxey. I mean, I'm gonna have to say that. You look at it. It's one of those things. He had 44 points to one night, right? Then the second night, he did okay. Like, he
Yeah,
scored.
yeah, 14 in that one.
Yeah, he had
Had a
14, but
little
he did
foul trouble.
okay. But I don't even think he got into foul trouble. But also, it looked like they just was going away from him. It was like it wasn't. You would expect it like the ball to find him. Now he did get into foul trouble, but there was times where I felt like I don't know. He just wasn't the guy. Like they just didn't go to him. And then last night he had 28 points. 28 points on 12 for 22 shooting. So
He
to
was
me, he's been the most impressive guy. He
He
has.
was great, man. I mean, he was only 2 for 6 for 3, but going up against Kristaps Porzingis in the paint, using the rim to protect and shield that shot blocker as he got into the painted area, the shots that he was able to get off the glass over the taller defenders. He did a lot. Not only, again, only made 2 threes, and in one pull-up that I remember specifically from about the elbow area, about 15 in, driving, stopping, pulling up. Everything else was to the basket. He was under control. They didn't really have a good opportunity of blocking the shots. He protected himself well of getting those shots off, high off the glass, scoop shots. He did everything, man, using the speed in transition. He has been tremendous. 31 points in that loss to Toronto the first time, the 44, as you mentioned there in game 2. 14 foul trouble. They didn't find him much against Chicago. And then the 28 last night to lead the team in scoring. He has just been phenomenal, and I think over the last 4 games, he's averaging about 28 points per game. So he's been on a great tear. For me, I think I'm going to look at the defensive improvements that they've made over the time that we talked about it, where we were asking and calling for Matisse Thybulle, but not only with Matisse Thybulle, but the increased level of play by DeAnthony Melton, who's also been in the lineup. And with those two out there together, they're very disruptive. While the steals may not add up in a big number on the stat sheet, they get a lot of deflections. We don't see those numbers. They have been very, very annoying for teams now on the perimeter, specifically with those 2 players out there, PJ Tucker. And I even have to give credit, of course, to Tobias Harris. He had a big defensive play against Bradley Beal along the sideline in front of the team's bench, where he got a steal, and he looked the look ahead to Tyrese Maxey to again finish in transition, put the body contact in play, and then lay the basketball up. They have picked that up, their defense up, in a big way. I know they gave up 111 points, but that's pretty much the normal. We're looking at around 107 in the NBA anyway. And the Washington Wizards like to run, just like the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, those teams that we've seen out there so far. Their defense, in my opinion, has picked up, Keith, over these last couple of games.
And but you know what? That's something else because if I would say now, of course, James Harden's the man, right? But I would say something else that impressed me was I mean the reserve, the bench,
Hmm.
and that goes with Melton and also Matisse Thybulle, George Niang, even
Montrezl Harrell
Montrezl
playing
Harrell.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they all been playing well too. So I mean, I think that, and like you said, they put Matisse in there, and then you have Melton out there. That perimeter defense isn't as bad as it used to be because and then you look at Tobias. Yeah, Tobias guarded Bill at time, but he doesn't have as tough assignments as he used to have. Now, again, he was on Bill on that play, which is a tough one, but for the most part, we don't see him chasing around wings for the most part anymore. So I think the bench in certain Matisse and then also Shake has been out there. He hasn't looked bad, So I would say the bench has been the second biggest improvement. Now, again, I know what James can do, so I'm not surprised with James. But the way the bench looked the first two games or first four games to the way they looked the last three are completely different.
No, they do. And even last night against the Washington Wizards, it was 20-20. But you got as D'Anthony Melton started, you were still able to get 12 from George Niang. He hit 4 threes. Montrezl Harrell bringing his energy as always. He had 7 points in there. He had a block shot. We often talk about his defense not being a factor in the game. He had a block shot that helped them out and defensively anyway. So yeah, you're right, man. The defense has stepped up in a big way, and the bench is a big part of that because of what Melton does when he is coming off the bench. Thibault, of course, Daniel House getting his hands in there, getting dirty also, and everybody just buying in and digging in, knowing that the defense is going to have to be a big part of their success going forward. So both of them surely showing up right now in these last few games, winning their last three, no doubt, and improving to now 4-4 on this season where they played these 8 games. Next up, the Washington Wizards again on Wednesday back here in Philadelphia. Keith, we got to talk about the team in general getting popped. Finally, we have a resolution to the investigation with the NBA from the offseason. We'll tell everybody what that is when we get back. It's kind of bogus, in my opinion, when we get back right here, locked on 76ers. Welcome back. You are locked on 76ers. Keith Pompey, Devon Givens. We are with you here. And we're talking about the Sixers winning their last 3 games, improving to 4-4, finding their stride yet again. But the players that have helped them do that, PJ Tucker, Anthony Melton, Montrezl Harrell, Daniel House that we talked about. It's really about PJ Tucker, James Harden in a sense, but mainly the PJ Tucker part, Keith. And we finally have a ruling on the investigation that the league was putting on based on all of the activity from the Sixers early on. Even your reporting, the great reporting that you did in finding about PJ Tucker early on in the free agent process right around the draft. And they were hit with a fine of 2 second-round picks. That was what the NFL decided to do. Go with 2 second-round picks, take away the 2023 and 2024 second-round picks. Is that right, Keith? From
Yeah,
this,
not. Yeah, 23 and 2024. Yep, that's
yeah.
it. The big round picks. Yeah.
So here's where I have a problem with it. Like I said then, they all do it. There are 30 teams. You can't tell me not one of them do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Are you going to find every you going to take away draft picks from every team that does this because they all do it,
Yeah.
and we know they do it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They all do it, but like sometimes it's kind of like I don't know, dude. It's kind of saying I get where you're coming from, but it's like it's kind of say like you did something like little as a little kid, you did something like bad or whatever, but you didn't get caught. The other somebody got caught and they had to get in trouble in school or something. You know what I mean? Like I get where you're coming from, but I also think that sometimes it was a little sloppy though. Like just getting it out there, like it just was, and I just think that they just got caught. Now again, everyone does it, but I just think that it was just sloppy. And then also you got to realize it comes down to people, and I'm not saying snitches, but there are certain teams that like were impacted by this, and they might have been pushing hard for it. But I get what you're saying. But like even the let's keep it 100. Even the fine is bogus. Like what you say
Everybody,
is
everybody might as well keep doing it because if all you're going to do is get hit with 2 second round picks, who
yeah,
cares?
like I mean that's bogus. I mean now the problem is the Sixers don't have any draft picks for a while now, right? But at the same time, like we're talking about Daryl Morey, a guy who doesn't really like draft picks. He just likes getting rid of them and getting free agents and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's like the crime is bogus and the fine is bogus. It's kind of like a, a a slap on the wrist, if you ask me, a little bit. You know what I mean? But
It really was. It
yeah,
really was. And they had to try to make an example out of someone. But this isn't the first time that we've seen this where someone has been, in fact, stripped of a second round pick because of some tampering rules that may have happened in the offseason, may have happened even during the season where they got hit for something. And I hear you. And again, someone has to be made the example of when this goes down. But this has been going on forever. And while they may have been sloppy, it's no sloppier than any other team that has been sloppy with this type of thing. And that's how I look at it. That's how I read things. And I understand it's not part of the rules and allowed, but everyone does it. And yeah, is everyone going to go and are you going to go and shave your head, right? Because everybody else does it? No, you're not. But this is something that's rampant in the NBA. And until they figure something out to put in the collective bargaining agreement, it's like, come on, you know, come on,
I
stop.
don't know, dude. It's like I hate to say it, D. You got caught. Like, I'm not trying to like make excuse. Like, it's kind of saying like, yo, oh well, and I didn't do this because I wasn't one of those kids. But it's like somebody saying, oh yeah, I stole a little piece of candy. Oh, but everybody steals such a teacher's candy. Well, you got caught, bruh. You know what I mean? Like, or I looked and I don't know. It's just to me, it's just they just got caught, dude. They one of the teams that got caught. And the thing about it is, let's keep it 100. Like last year, the year before that was it was not University, it was Miami, and it was another team. So they
Yeah,
have been trying to
Chicago,
get these people, yeah, for
Lonzo
Kyle
Ball,
Lowry, huh?
Miami, Kyle Lowry, and I think it was Lonzo Ball for Chicago.
Yeah, yeah. So it's happening, but again, it's these second round picks. So
Yeah, well, it's weird to me because you could even go back and say where there was conversation. You remember when I got off on a whole tangent about are you going to go and look at the conversations James Harden wanted to get out of Brooklyn and go to Philadelphia? You know what I'm saying? So and then him saying he wanted to be here, but
again, I hate to say it, is a rule, man. Like everybody does it, but like we got to be real. Everybody does it, but some people are more smoother with their stuff. You know what I mean? It's like you just can't be sloppy. Like the big part is you can't have a dude. Everybody around the league knowing the dude going to get 3 years, $30 million, but you don't have $30 million available. You That's the problem. You understand? It's like that's the problem. And what happens is you're right. It's like everyone does it, but the thing about it is it was out there. I mean, it was everybody knew about it in the league. That was like the worst kept secret. So then all of a sudden, everybody knew Harden was going to take less money, but then they made it seem like they would. It made it seem like it was a negotiation. So I feel like you're right. Everybody does it, but it was just sloppy. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's not going to change how I feel.
Yeah, of course it shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
It's not going to
shouldn't. But
change.
I just think that you just can't be sloppy.
Fair enough. Well, I don't think we're sloppy on this podcast. I think we make sure that we're not sloppy and we're tight. We tighten things up on here. And so, with that, we make sure we thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Keith, can you let the folks know where they can find us?
Yeah, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And when you go to the Locked On 76ers podcast on the YouTube, make sure that you click on the Liberty Bell. You click on the Liberty Bell, and then next thing you know, you become a subscriber. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can follow D at Divine G975. You can follow me at Pompey on Sixers. You can also go to the Divine Giving Show. Tonight, D is going to be on the air, 97.5 FM, from 10:30 to midnight. You can also read me in the Philadelphia Inquirer, inquirer.com, and get your Sixers news.
Make sure you get in there. It's always good coverage, and there are a lot of games. So Keith is going to have you guys all squared away throughout the whole season. Listen, man, always good to catch up. We'll tap in tomorrow as we get ready for game number 2 against Washington on Wednesday. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Peace.